Today, we have Cynthia and myself. We are doing a leadership offsite retreat in a undisclosed cabin in the woods. It's not creepy at all. So we are coming to you from our leadership retreat. So that's why we are here together. We're doing the lightweight version of our podcast. I am Shannon Ferris. I have set up and sold several businesses for over 7 figures. And what I do is I leverage my business acumen to help women get their financial security. And I'm going to turn over to my amazing, lovely, smart, brilliant, all the things co-host, Cynthia.
And I am Cynthia Day. I am a mama. I'm a boy mom. And I am also a high-end luxury national high-end luxury real estate broker and coach. And I use my marketing and sales skills in order to help women build empires.
Thank you. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic that we all struggle with. It is silencing your inner critic, how to deal with it, and then ultimately shut that dirty bitch up. So let's get into it.
Looking like a baddie, I show up and make them stop. Wanna know my name so badly, cause I run this whole block. Tip my hair, move my head, show the world I'm royalty. Wait, yeah. Move it. They wanna know just how I do.
Awesome. So since that inner critic, how do you move from your inner critic to your inner coach? That is the question.
So let's unpack for our audience really quick the difference between the two, because I think that's important. Your inner critic is that negative self-talk. It's things that you, what do you call it? Your negative beliefs about yourself.
It's being super hard on yourself. It's beating yourself up. It's telling yourself you should have done better. You're not good enough. You could have done this instead. You know, it's
the judging of yourself, the guilt, all of the
rejecting yourself.
Yes, right? And then how do you turn it into the positive, the inner coach, where you are learning from your experiences to do better and building up the positive?
Yeah, just
self-worth.
basically learning, accepting feedback from yourself and just learning how to, okay, I see myself clearly. This is what I did here. This is what I could do different next time. So I'm just going to show up and I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to do that next time.
Yeah.
It's just like being coached. It's coaching yourself through situations so that you just continue to get better at something over time.
Yes. And what do you always tell me?
Give yourself some grace.
Give yourself some grace. You give it to everybody else. Why don't you give it to yourself?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. So we are going to share some stories and unpack our journeys and our pivotal moments where we have learned to do, we're still learning, but we have really kind of, I wouldn't say mastered, but we have become very proficient. You've probably mastered it, or the techniques. I'm getting proficient. It's not the same. We are not equal in any way, shape, or form.
Of what?
The techniques of silencing our inner critic, because we have very different ways that we do it.
Right.
And we do leverage each other in order to do it. So
100%.
Let's talk about that. So going through your journey, Cynthia, on this. So tell me, share a story with me about a time where you realizing there's an inner critic and how you dealt with it.
Oh, Shannon, that's a loaded
I know, it's a
question.
two-part question. So
let me just stretch it out and get ready for this.
I know. Why don't we just start with like a time when the inner critic has been like,
do I have enough tissues available?
Yeah, the dirty
Okay.
bitch was really alive and well.
The dirty bitch. Yes, she was alive and well. So I will share a time in which when I became a real estate agent, right? Before I became a leader in my business, I was rocking and rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm talking real estate was the thing that helped me grow up professionally. It helped me realize what I am made of. It helped me establish the fact that I had natural qualities to do this well. Like this was a career that was fit for me.
Okay. So when you say natural qualities, had you in the past gone through a series of like trying to figure, I always call it, what do I want to be when I grow up?
1,000%. I mean, come on, I tried technology. This is why it's so funny. I mean, come on. I cannot, I mean, like literally, if I can get on a computer and just simply check my email, that's all the technology that I freaking know.
So you did technology. What else did you do?
I did technology. I did skincare. So I was like, you know, rubbing people's faces and waxing their hoo-haws and their armpits at like these high-end spas.
Okay. What else?
I did makeup.
So you were just in different realms. And
I was in different realms.
You discovered real estate.
I discovered real estate because I realized that I was ambitious. Mm-hmm. I realized that I wanted to make more, right? I wanted to do more for myself. And I wanted a career that had no ceiling. Like I wanted to be able to make as much as I could.
Okay. So you now are in real estate. You're
Mm-hmm.
an agent at the time.
And I realized that I was damn good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I became the #1 salesperson in my whole office. And I remember doing it back when in 2008, when there was devastation and destruction all around me.
Yes.
I mean, literally, the real estate market was plummeting to the bottom of the ocean, like the Titanic.
Yes. It was like 1930s again, like detrimental. Okay.
Economic just recession. Yes, catastrophe. And here's little old me, you know, parachuting on the end of the Titanic, you know, while it's sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And here I am about to start and embark on a whole new career for myself. And it was during this time that I created a lot of processes around, you know, the art of buying and selling a home. And it wasn't just the art of buying and selling the home. What the art was how did I connect with people on such a authentic, deep level that allowed me to really provide an experience that they continued to tell more and more and more people about, which in turn helped me get tons of referral and repeat business. And ever since, you know, I've had a very constant flow of business. Since then, I've just never had to pay for leads for myself. Yeah. I've never had to start over and really hustle and work with a bunch of strangers.
Yeah. So it's the bottom. Everybody else is bailing.
Mm-hmm.
You're thriving in this time where it kind of cleared the path of the weak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're excelling. Go into more of inner critic.
Yeah. So, you know, naturally, when you emerge as someone who's doing well, naturally people want to learn from you.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a path in which I began to coach other real estate agents that were in my office and help them duplicate the kind of success that I was having.
Okay.
Became pretty successful at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, over time, you think, oh, the natural progression is I'm going to go out and do this on my own.
Yes. Why am I want my, what is it? I want my cut, the broker cut. I'm teaching people how to do it.
You're
Lower
exactly
left.
right.
Makes sense. Looks good on paper.
It did. It looked great on paper. And of course, with me having that type of ambition, it was great, right? Like it was the natural step that I was ready to take on. But the thing was, I was operating from a salesperson identity.
Okay.
And not necessarily the entrepreneur, the person who is got strong business acumen, strategies in business, and how to grow one.
You're shooting from the hip.
I was shooting from the hip as a salesperson.
Yeah. So you mastered being a salesperson, but
I did not prepare myself for what it took to run a freaking brokerage.
Or have a mentor or a model or somebody that you could emulate. Okay. So now you have your brokerage. You've got your people.
I've got my people, and I had a really nice handful of them too.
Okay. What happened?
Well, because I didn't know much about how to hire the right person, I hired a person that I liked. I did not know how to sort for the right talent. I did not know specifically what qualities that person needed to have in order to put them in that position. Like I didn't know what qualities that position needed to have mastered really well.
So you hired a personality, not the skill set.
I hired the personality.
How?
How did
that lead to your downfall?
How was that a detriment? Yeah. Well, she turned out to be absolutely fucking batshit crazy, let me tell you. So I don't usually blow a gasket, but this girl, I lost absolute control. And I remember her trying to run off and control the situation, and I absolutely lost my shit. And I am over here screaming at the top of my lungs. And that did not go well with this girl. And so she ended up calling every one of my agents and badmouthed me and threw me under the bus. And one by one, these agents would call me and they would say, Cynthia, I am not happy with this. I don't want to be here. This is not what I signed up for. This is not the place that I want to be. And let me just tell you, one by one, for like 2 solid weeks, I got a call every single day with one dart in the heart, you know, and
smear campaign going on in the background
with a little twist too. Okay. You know, I was like,
so your emotions got the best of you.
Oh God, I felt like such a fucking failure.
So now we have a bad hire. We let emotions take over.
Yes.
We've lost our agents.
Yes.
The pillars. Where does your inner critic come in?
I mean,
all these things happen.
You know, naturally, when you're getting beat down by the constant rejection, right? It takes a toll on you. Like your fucking heart bleeds, your ego is crushed in 1,000 pieces. You don't feel proud of yourself. You don't feel good about yourself. And then you don't believe you're good enough. And when that shit happens, like you little by little just start to have less and less faith in yourself that I can do this, you know, I can run a successful brokerage. I can, you know, impact, you know, people and make them successful. I can have a life of freedom. I can, you just have less and less belief and then less and less desire,
Yeah.
to continue with the dream.
So you have this inner critic in your mind saying, you thought you could do it, you were wrong, you're not good enough, look what you did. All these like horrible things that we all think at one time or the other, especially when the world is crashing down and you're having these moments and the worst possible scenarios are going through your head and you may be reeling a little bit. So now you're having these really
hard conversations with myself.
And the devil there just eating away
at my
self-esteem.
soul. Yeah, my self-esteem. That's right.
True. It is.
Oh, gosh.
That's why she's a raggedy, dirty bitch.
Right.
It is. All right. We need Princess to come out.
Yes.
All right. So now what happened? Your world has crashed down.
My world has crashed down. And so I let go of the dream, right? Like any person that's hit with traumatic experiences, they just let go of the dream. I let go of all the agents and I worked as a solo agent in my brokerage for probably almost 2 years.
Okay.
And then
I'm gonna flex the muscle.
Then I ended up getting pregnant. And Cynthia could not be out in the streets any longer. Cynthia, was working long hour days and I could not be out in the streets and I had to hire agents in order to go out and close the leads and, they had to be the ones kissing baby, shaking hands, doing all the stuff for me because I had a baby attached to my boob.
Yeah. So you have this inner critic. What did you do that made you go from the inner critic to the inner coach and saying, you can do this again?
It was very hard. It was very hard. I had to fight past a lot of fear. It was so much fear. I was so traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I did not want to make the necessary investments in those agents. Like I didn't at first want to systematize my operation. I wanted to give them no technology to help them do their job better. I did not want to give them any leads at first other than, my own business and then show them how to fish on their own. I just didn't want to make any investments at first. And then I realized, okay, so I am limiting them just as much as I am limiting myself. Ooh. And that helped me wake up and realize, Cynthia, you cannot put people in the little bitty box that you are and show them that they have to be limited.
So
right?
It sounds like you acknowledge the inner critic.
I
Instead
did.
of listening to it, the first step was like, I acknowledge. I realize what's happening. I realize how detrimental it is. Now what's next?
So then I realized I had to look back and I had to look at my leadership abilities. I had to look at my business acumen, and I had to look at how well do I know how to scale a business? How well do I know how to set up fundamental, foundational things, right? And how do I resource my agents with the necessary things and spend money on, the things that they need in order to excel, not the fluffy shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like what's the extra and what's the necessity? So I just really started becoming less involved in my ego and more involved practically. I put myself in their shoes and I said, what would I need if I was them in order to be successful, right? Like in order to go fish, I need a pond, I need a pole, and I need some bait.
Good bait.
Right? So I equipped them with a lake, I equipped them with a pole, and I equipped them with some bait. And then I showed them how to cast the line.
Would you say that when you're going through this kind of thought process that you went from jaded because you said you didn't want to give people
I was
you're going to leave me again. You're going to leave me again.
Yes.
I did all this stuff for you.
Yes.
Right. And so that came from a place of ego.
Yes.
And then you switched over to empathy.
Yes, I did, because I realized that I was limiting them and I was limiting their future. And I had to get outside of myself. Yes. So that was, to answer your question, that was the turning moment. When I got out of my way and stopped making it all about me and stopped just sitting there in the corner licking my wounds.
Excuse me, it's always about me.
Says the princess.
Yes. Yes. We're going from dirty raggedy bitch and we're switching over to our princess, or baddie mode. Right?
Baddie mode.
Yes. Real baddies, they straighten crowns. They don't tear them down.
Right.
So now you're doing it again. You're taking lessons that you have learned. You're not sitting in this poor me victim mode.
Correct.
And you're like, okay, let's go.
Right. So I stopped making it about me. And when I did that, and I did put myself in a place of empathy, like there are some other ambitious women out here, and I had a team of excellent girls, and they all had these dreams of doing big shit for themselves and their families and their future. And I thought to myself, who the fuck am I to limit that dream?
Yeah.
So the moment that I got beyond myself, then I said, what do these girls need? And then when that happened, I said, okay, Cynthia, how are you not going to fuck this up again? And so I started looking at myself honestly.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, Cyn, what did you need back then that you didn't have? Because I played out the scenarios, right? And I realized where I screwed up because I was not educated in that arena.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to build my leadership skills. I went in and I started learning the things that I didn't know back then. And I started investing in myself to build that education, that acumen within me, that knowledge.
So you're investing in yourself and what you need. So when you invest in yourself, there's an investment in other people. Would you agree with that statement?
1000%.
Do you understand what a rarity it is for people to take a step back and be able to do that? Because most of the time they're stuck in their victim mode and they're pointing fingers. They have, unearned ego and insecurities are lethal.
Honey.
Yeah.
Hush.
Well, yes, it is. Unearned ego and insecurities, they're detrimental and they're so lethal. That's where you get those truly toxic, like your friend, the assistant or whatever that you hired, right? She's losing her shit. She's trying to control. She doesn't know when to ask for help, those types of things.
Right. And so she's like, ugh. Well, if you want to oust me, I am taking the whole shit down.
Exactly. So that is.
She's like, I'm burning this bitch to the ground.
She did. Flipping a table, right? Time and place, right? You don't do it right away because somebody hurt your feelings. So now you've gone through this. You have this inner critic. You were torn down and you went to this coaching place. Right? So from that coaching place and that perspective, you were able to go from being a broker in one office to the whole multiple state nationwide,
Right.
and go from maybe the smaller homes to multi-million-dollar homes.
Correct. Yes. And that is because number one, I just forgave myself. I forgave myself for not knowing what I needed to know back then. Right?
Yeah.
And, that whole saying, it's like people do to the best of their abilities at the time.
You don't know what you know until you know it.
And I did
the best I had with, the tools that were given to me. So I will forgive other people, but I'm just now coming to a place where I can find grace in myself. So that's insert eye roll or averting feel attacked. So, well, that is quite a journey. So from that, have you applied it to other places in your life?
Oh, 1,000%. So, here's the thing, right? Like, so I'm on my way to Houston one day, because I got
that traffic,
major fucking daddy issues, right? And so
that topic will come up. Parental issues,
Sidebar.
Brother issues, mommy issues. Down the road. We have it on the list of topics. Okay?
Oh, yeah. Just stay tuned for the rest of your life, because we will be unpacking all kinds of crazy shit.
Our traumas will work for you because we have mastered them.
Right? Healing and dealing. That's what we do. Healing and dealing.
Not trying to catch no feelings. I'm trying to catch millions.
That's our next song.
That's Lizzo.
That's our next song that we're coming out with.
Yeah.
So yes, it is. It is absolutely what I have applied this to other areas of my life. And that's an excellent question, because like I said, I was on my way to Houston, right? Like my father is there, and major daddy issues. And so I was listening to another very wise person on a podcast. And excuse me, he had mentioned something that said, if people knew better, they'd do better.
Yes.
And so when I applied that to my father, I gave the man some grace.
Yeah.
Because he just didn't simply know what to do. He didn't have the knowledge. He didn't have the experience. And he didn't know how to give me that, right, when I needed it. So that is how I have provided grace.
So by forgiving yourself and silencing that inner critic and flipping it on its head and turning it into a coach, that was able to afford you to, and when we say forgive, we don't mean forget. We don't mean turn into a doormat. We don't mean any of those things. You still set your boundaries, but it gave you the opportunity to find some peace in that relationship.
You're absolutely right. And so I think a lot of the things that I began to believe already was that failure is valuable when I look back on things, right? Like, how do you know? One thing that you and I have said before is, if you're not out there failing, you're not trying.
Well, you're not in the right room. You're in a very comfortable.
You're not in the arena.
Yes, man. You are nowhere, right? If you're not failing and everything's going right,
exactly.
Time to move on and up.
You're playing too small. So if you're not, failure is actually valuable. And I stopped being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And that's what this taught me. And I also realized that failure is only feedback.
Yeah.
It's just something that said, it's just an end result that allowed me to understand, well, that didn't work. try and try again.
Yeah, I think people need to understand there's no such thing as perfection. It does not exist. There is excellence, and how you get there is from those feedback tools, right?
100%.
Yeah. That was once I realized that was very liberating for me, coming from somebody who had an expectation to always be perfect. And so figuring out there's no such thing as perfection, but there is excellence is one of the key things that have really changed my life. And in order to get to excellence, you have to work very hard. You have to learn your lessons from the failure and apply them.
So talk to me about perfection, because I think that striving so much for perfection is something that a lot of us place on our shoulders, unrealistic expectations sometimes. And it is the reason why we're so hard on ourselves, because we're striving for that perfection.
Okay, well then let's talk about this then. What is perfection to you? What is perfection to that person? What is perfection to me? So me, perfection is trying to live in other people's expectations of you.
Oh, damn. What was that?
Yeah, so perfection is trying to live in other people's expectations of you, whether that's society, your family, or everything else. It's not what you care about. It's not your version. Somebody might think the perfect life is living out of a backpack in Europe, just getting enough money to survive day to day. That is their perfection. Now, for me or somebody else, absolutely not. But we put other people's expectations on us. And then, that's why we have these social media. We have people that are so unhappy and they're getting their dopamine hits from their social media and all of this other things because they have unearned ego and they're massively insecure.
Talk about that.
So that creates this perceived notion of perfection. So for me, it was living up to what I thought was my mom's idea of perfection.
Which was?
Being it's so kind of, in my eyes, it makes my skin crawl. But I was the only kind of female. So it was, you get married, they called it your MRS. You get your MRS degree. So you get married. Are you laughing? I'm like, ew, no, thank you. Ew, David, no. You get married. You take care of your husband. It's this which is fine if you're going to do that, right? But it never felt right with me. You take care of your husband, you have kids, you do all of these things. And then maybe one day, Shannon, you can be a dental hygienist. Yes, I would love to go be digging around in somebody's halitosis mouth. Dream come true. Thank you.
That sounds just as limiting as me on those agents.
I know, but it was just, but something never sat right with me. However, I had the need to live up to other people's expectations. So I tried to do what they wanted and then what I wanted. And what that caused was that in that critic, you're not good enough. Maybe you should only be this, whatever it is, right? It caused me to get control through other things like eating. And, I was so just unhappy with those specific things. So it was their idea of perfection, not my idea of perfection or my idea of freedom.
And so what were the things that you said that because you were living basically a silent hell, because you could not be outside of that image that they placed on you.
Yeah.
What did you go and do as a result to cope?
I was very angry. I would lash out at people. I would overeat because I could control it. I was just so, I remember just being so unhappy. But then I remember thinking, this is not who I want to be. And I put myself through college. First person in my family to get a degree.
That's incredible.
So that's where I always say I went from hold my beer to hold my cocktail. And then from there, I did it myself. Even though I remember, I tell this story all the time because it was such a pivotal moment, right? There was an act of God, a hurricane came through, and I was getting a technology degree. So I would rent my books. These books are so expensive. It would be $600 for just one book, and you needed 3 books. So I was renting the books when you could. And then technology changes all the time. When am I going to keep it? No, like rent it and move on. So if you could. And so it couldn't get to me in time. So I had the drive to do better. There's no way on God's green earth I was going to be a dental hygienist. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that was not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I knew I was placed here to do more. I was bigger than that. It's just more, right? I remember asking my mom, hey, can I borrow? Which I always, Atlanta store always pays their debts. I always paid my money back. Always did. Because she spent so much time and attention on my older brothers. I was kind of like left in the wind, right? And so I figured out how to do all these things myself. And so I remember saying, well, I don't know. I'll have to see if I have it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Right. And so that was something I was like, I will never depend on anybody else again to do anything. So even though it came from there, I was just like, I thrive on proving people wrong. So it's able to, I'm a little bit different than you. I'm like, I will prove you wrong. I will show you what I can do. That's insecurity with earned ego, a little bit better. Right. But then I realized I am talented. I'm very smart. I started really finding more about myself and my skills. And then a little bit different than you. I was like, that person can do it. I damn sure know I can do it.
So this is your inner coach and how you're coaching yourself now at this point.
Yes, I'm like, excuse me, but my daddy didn't raise no punk ass bitch, and if he did, it was my brother's. I'm not doing it. But I did. I started realizing, like, I am smart. I can do these things. And so even when my mom, like, I had a very successful career in technology, my mom would say things like, oh, well, you really lucked into that career. And I'm like, do you know how much time and work and energy I did this? In a
man's world at that time?
Yeah.
I mean, really and truly.
I know, but a lot of people would be like, oh, like, did I luck into it? Like, did I do these things? But I didn't. I took a moment back and I was like, no, I didn't luck into it. You don't know the work that I put into this. So for me, it's coming from a different place of, no, I will. I love to prove people wrong, right? I love that little kind of almost the little fire that's in there.
That is you.
It does make me thrive 100%.
Yes. Okay. So there's 2 different ways that we have both coached ourselves, reached our inner coach. And we've coached ourselves through some very critical moments in our lives. And what were some key takeaways that you realized about perfection and how you have looked back on it now?
I look back on it and I don't beat myself up for some of the things that I did. I find it grateful because if I hadn't gone through that, then I wouldn't maybe realize how strong and determined and all my blessings that I have.
Right.
Right. A couple of things that I do is I do like to prove people wrong. But when I do have that fear, because it does hit me, when I want to make a change, like when I wanted to move from Florida to Texas, I was petrified. I was petrified. And a friend of mine said, what's the worst that could happen?
And what did you realize for yourself? What was that answer?
I wrote down the worst possible things that could happen. And it was better than where I was at.
Wow.
So I do ask myself, what's the worst could happen? Remember another time I had a friend of mine and I was still in the victim mode, right? And she's like, you know what, Shannon, what are you going to do about it? So that's when I kind of went into the, what am I going to do about it?
Oh, those are great questions.
Yeah.
Oh, those are some great tools that,
So it's facing the fear
yeah.
of like, what is it? Is it as bad as I think it is? Because it's not.
I love that. Okay, so facing the fear and seeing what the worst that could happen and comparing it to what is if you stayed in the place that you're at.
Yeah, that scared me more than the unknown.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, Shannon, you dropped huge nuggets. So the ultimate belief then that you have for yourself now, going from a place of having to be this perfect person, having to live up to someone else's expectations of who they think you need to be, to literally breaking down all the walls, but breaking all the rules and facing some of your biggest fears ever that scared the absolute shit out of you.
Yes.
Who do you believe? What do you believe about yourself now? And who do you believe that you are as a result of going through all of that?
Well, we've talked about this before because I do not show myself I'm very hard on myself, unrealistically hard on myself. But my belief is I'm going into nerd mode. I have the data to show that I am like good enough. I am worthy of these things. And frankly, I can do anything because I came, poor family, put myself through. I've done things that would probably cripple other people. So when I take those things and I hold it, I am proud of those specific things.
One thing that I really want for you is for you to say, I am Grace.
Oh my gosh. This is you want me to cry? Right?
No, I'm just saying, I think you've earned the title. Like, I think that you have earned that for yourself.
It makes me physically uncomfortable.
Oh, yes. That means that honestly, we're hitting something real.
She hates it. I hate being vulnerable, right? Yeah. So what do you want me to say?
I am Grace.
Actually, that used to be my nickname. Funny.
Really?
Only because I was clumsy, not in this
way. Well, I have never, ever claimed to be the most graceful thing in this planet because I'm so clumsy.
Yeah. So I am Grace. I do want to say one more thing, though, that has helped me is I have made sure that I have surrounded myself with people whose values and opinions I do value, meaning not all feedback is created equal. You wouldn't take financial advice from a broke person. You wouldn't take fashion advice from a person who doesn't know how to dress. You wouldn't take health advice from somebody who's not in good physical shape. So I don't surround myself with people whose lives I wouldn't want to live in. So here's that.
So choose your influence.
It is. It's important because why are you like being with somebody why are you giving me advice?
Right.
Consider
the source is what you always say.
Consider the source. You cannot grow when you don't.
With someone who isn't there. Like the person who's not there cannot show you how to get it.
Yeah, because I'm spending energy and cycles. Like, why am I listening to you?
And you ain't even there yet.
Not even in the geographical location.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say then the biggest belief, in addition to I am good enough, I am good enough, would be I believe in myself to get me there.
Yeah. And failure's okay.
And failure is okay. You know, and I was sharing with you when we were preparing, for this segment, I was letting you know that I've spoken to many venture capitalists. Well, not many. Okay, I take that back. That's an over-exaggeration. But I have spoken to some venture capitalists.
A few, which is 3 or more.
Right, at least. And so, they've told me on a consistent basis, I won't invest in a business owner or into a person in their business unless they have failed at least 3 times.
Yeah, because they want to know. Because when everything looks good on paper and it's perfect, then it's just a huge red flag. Right.
You don't know how to handle adversity. You don't know how to handle things that are going south.
You're just covering
don't
things
know
up.
how.
It's a sinking ship.
Right.
There's no such thing as perfection. It can look good and you can talk. They want the empathy. They want to know who you are because they are investing in the company, but they're also investing in you.
They're investing in your experience and in your knowledge. When you failed the first time, what did you do next? And when you failed the next time, what did you do after that? Yeah. It's like, how do you continue to progress and how do you continue to learn from each failure?
But you have to progress. You can't keep failing, doing the same thing over and over and over again. So there is a differentiator.
I have to agree with you on that. So, I think the moral of the story is don't be afraid to fail. Believe you're already good enough. Give yourself the grace.
I don't like it here. I'm kidding. I'm working on it, right? That's why I said proficient earlier. So, yeah. We do have lots of tools and resources that we have used, and we are going to be putting that into our comments. We will be posting those. You can find it on our YouTube channel, on our Instagram. So more to come, but make sure you check out those links and resources that are going to be coming to you and hit the subscribe button.
Mash it, baby. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Move it, move it. Groove it, groove it.